Hey everybody, this is Mr. Johnston with your daily math lesson. Today we're doing math lesson 3-5, and it's called Counting Up Subtraction. But we're going to start with some mental math, some slate work, so get out your slates. If for some reason you don't have a slate, a piece of paper will do just fine. We're going to round each number to the nearest 10, and then you're going to estimate the sum or the difference. Remember, the sum is an answer to an addition problem. Difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. Here we go. Round those numbers to the nearest 10 and then add them together. For this third one, you're going to round those numbers to the nearest 10 and subtract them. Hit pause now, give the students some time to do this work, and then hit play, and I'll go over how to solve. Okay, well, if you're rounding numbers to the nearest 10, I always say underline the number in the tens place. So we underlined the 9 in the tens place. That's 90. The question we're asking ourselves, of course, is, are we leaving that number at a 9 or 90, or are we bumping it up to 100? The way we tell is to look at the number next to it, the number in the ones place. If it's 5 or above, we give it a shove. We'd bump it up to a 10. If it's 4 or below, we let it go. We leave it. Leave it go might be a better thing to say. So we look at the 99. This is 5 or above, so we're going to bump this up to 10 or 100. And if you look at the number 99, that should have been really easy for you to figure out anyway. 99 is 1 away from 100, which is a nice even number. So we're going to round that to 100. Darn it. Let me get my correct tool here. We're going to round that to 100. Now, 49, of course, 9 or above, give it a shove. We're going to round that to 50. So we end up with 100 plus 50 is 150. Okay? That was an easy one because these were both in the 9s, which makes it really easy just to bump it up to the next even 10, right? So, same thing. We're looking at the 7 and the 2. We're deciding, are we keeping that number, 76, are we going to round it to 70, or are we going to bump it up to 80? We know we're getting rid of the 6 no matter what. We're rounding that part off. Now, the 6 is 5 or above, right? It's above a 5, so we're giving the 7 a shove up to an 8. So 76 is going to become 80. And 24, are we staying at 20, or are we bumping up to 30? We know we're rounding that 4 off. It's going to be a 0 one way or the other, but is it going to be 20 or 30? Well, 4 or below, let it go. So we're leaving the 2 as it is. Leaving the 2 10s, and this is going to be 20. So 80 plus 20, that is really easy to get a quick estimate, isn't it? 80 plus 20 is 100. This one should be really easy too. 49 is much closer to 50. 21 is much closer to 20. 50 minus 20 is 30. All right, clear off your slates. Get ready for the next screen. Okay, this time it looks like we're talking about 3-digit numbers, numbers that go out into the hundreds place. This is the ones place, the tens place, and the hundreds place. Still do the exact same thing, though. We're rounding each number to the nearest 10. So I'm going to underline the digits in the tens place because that's the only one that we care about. Will 249, will it stay at 240? Or will it go up to 250? Well, you can tell that the 9 makes it go up to the 50. So this is going to be 250 minus 100, right? This is 4 or below, let it go. So we're leaving it go, leaving the 0 at 0. We're not bumping up to a 1. So we end up with 250 minus 100. And that should be pretty easy for you to figure out that 250 minus 100 is 150. This one down here, 347. Well, again, we're looking at the 4. And we're saying, is that staying at 40 or are we bumping up to a 50? The 7 is above a 5. 5 or above, give it a shove. So we're shoving it up to a 50. So this is going to be 350. 253 is going to be 250. So now we're just estimating to get our estimate. 350 minus 250 is going to be 100. 584. Let's go through the steps. I'm going to circle the number this time. Are we leaving that at an 8 or are we bumping up to a 9? Well, the 4 is not as high as a 5, so we're leaving the 8 alone. and we're rounding that 4 off to a 0. So 580, 121. Are we leaving it at 20? Are we bumping it up to 30? Well, the 1 is below a 5. So 4 or below, leave it go. Leave it alone. So it's going to be 580 plus 120. And 580 plus 120, you could say 500 plus 100 is 600. 80 plus 20 is another 100. So our answer is going to be 700. All right, clear for slates. Get ready for the next screen. Hit pause if you need to until your students are ready. Okay, same thing here. Rounding each number to the nearest 10. 421 is going to be 420. The 1 means that this 20 is staying at a 20 and not going to a 30. 296 is closer to 300. So you're going to end up with 420 minus 300. And the answer to that is 120. 420 minus 300 is 120. I don't remember if I told you to hit pause or not, but hit pause so your students can do these 3 things on their slates, and then hit play when you're ready to come back and hear the answers. I may have done that first one for you, but that's okay. So hit pause now. Okay, we're back. 338, rounding to the nearest 10. This should be getting easy for you now. The 10 is the 3 in the tens. Well, the 8 tells us we're going to go up to the next 10. So this is going to be 340. 79, of course, is going to become 80. So now we have 340 plus 80. 80 plus 40 is 120. Add another 300 onto that, and you get 420. 537 is closer to 540. So we're going to change that to 540. 186, well, this is 5 or above, so this is going to get shoved up. 5 or above, give it a shove. It's going to be shoved from an 8 to a 9, so 190. So now we have 540 plus 190, and that equals 730. You probably would have said 500 plus 100 is 600, and kept that aside in your head, and then 90 plus 40 is 130, because you know 9 plus 4 is 13. So 90 plus 40 is 130. 600 plus 130 is 730. You may clear off your slates. Okay, so here's the math message for today. Fill in the unit box. Remember, if we're not doing a number story that talks about kittens or dogs or pennies or marbles, then you can just fill in your own unit with whatever you want. So I'm going to fill it in with squids today. We're talking about squids. Doesn't really matter. Fill in the unit box. Subtract. Show your work and explain it to a partner. So on your slate or on a piece of paper, you're going to use whatever strategy you want to figure out 56 minus 24. And you're going to hit pause. The teacher will hit pause, let you do that work until the teacher thinks everyone's pretty much done or close to being done. And then hit play, and I'll come back and go over some different strategies that you may have chosen. So go ahead and hit pause now and do 56 minus 24. So you learned a bunch of different ways to do this kind of subtraction in the 2nd grade. Some of you may have remembered that you can do 56 minus 24 in columns. So you'd start over here in the ones column and say 6 minus 4. Then you do the tens column. 5 tens minus 2 tens is 3 tens. And you get 32. That might be one way that some of you did it. Another way could be you might have set it up kind of the same way. Whoops. You might have set it up 56 minus 24, but you might have said, I'm going to do my tens first. 50 minus 20 is 30. And then you've got 30, and then you would have had to say, but it's really 36, and 36 minus 4 is 32. So that's another way you could have gotten it. The way I want to focus on you also could have used your number grid, right? You could have used your number grid, and you could have found 24 and counted up to 56, or you could have found 56 and counted back to 24, remembering to every time you go up or down a number grid, you're going by 10. Every time you go right or left, you're adding or subtracting 1. So you could have used your number grid. That's another thing you could have done, another strategy that would have worked. And we all have number grids in our totes, in our math kits that we could have used. Some of you may have drawn an open number line, something like this. And you may have said, well, I'm going to put 24 right here. I'm going to put 56 right here. And I'm going to count up. And of course, you're not going to count up by ones. I mean, you could, 24, and then 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. That's a lot of counting and a lot of room for mistakes. If you do it perfectly, you'll get the answer, but there's a lot of room for mistakes there. So we want to make bigger jumps if we can. So for example, if you jump from 24 to 34, that's a plus 10, right? And if you do that again, you'd be at 44. That's another plus 10. If you do that again, you'd be at 54. That's another plus 10. So far we've gone 10, 20, 30, right? We've gone 30 spaces, and we're at 54, which means we've got to get to 56. That's 2 more spaces, but 2 more ones. So 1 plus 1 will take us to 55, and plus another one will take us to 56. So 10, 20, 30, 31, 32. That's the counting up method, and that's kind of what we're going to be working on today, using open number lines or other methods to count up when we're doing a subtraction problem. Now, of course, people are going to use the open number line and make their jumps in different ways, so let's try it again. I'm using my line tool to make an open number line. Then I'm getting my pen back, and of course, we're going to jump from the low number to the high number, so we're jumping from 24 to 56. So here's 24. Here's 56, because we're counting up. If we were counting back, we'd do it the other way, but we're counting up. Now, last time I started off counting by tens. This time I'm going to say, hold on a second, I want to get to a nice even number. So I want to get to 30. So to get from 24 to 30, you can probably figure out that's a plus 6. Now I'm at 30. Wow, look what I can do now. Now I can go a nice big jump. I can jump all the way to 50. If I jump from 30 to 50, that's a plus 20. The bigger the jumps you make, the easier this is. So I jumped from 24 to 30, which was 6. Then I made a nice big jump from 30 to 50, which was plus 20. Now, to get from 50 to 56, I've got one more jump, which is plus 6. So 20 plus 6 plus 6. That's the difference. That's how many I counted up. And again, 6 and 6 is 12. 20 plus 12 is 32. We got the same answer, but this time we did it in different jumps. We did it in 3 jumps this time. And that might work better for some of you. And of course, there are many other ways you could have gotten there, but it makes sense to try to get either to a nice even number or to make nice even jumps of 10s or 20s or something like that. That's going to be easier for you to do. So get used to doing that. We're going to practice this some more today. Try this one on your slate or a piece of paper. 53 minus 39. There's an open number line here. You could draw an open number line. I'd like everyone actually to try it using an open number line. So on your slate, draw an open number line. I'll even help you get started. We're using the counting up method. So we're going to go from the low number, 39, to the high number of 53. This is a way to find out how much is in between 39 and 53, which is the same as saying what's the difference between 39 and 53, which is the same way as saying 59 minus 39. Difference means subtraction. So now I will suggest that you hit pause on the video and let the students work on using an open number line to count up from 39 to 53. Then you can come back and I'll show you a couple different ways that you may have done that. Okay, well, one thing I'm noticing right off is that you could just make one little jump to 40 because that's a nice even 10, right? So that would be a plus 1. Now I'm at 40. Well, I can make a big jump of 10 to get to 50, plus 10. And then I know to get from 50 to 53, it's only a jump of 3. And I can add 10 plus 1 plus 3 and get 14. So the difference between 50 3 and 39 is 14. Let's do it a different way. Clear off your slates, or you can just pay attention. I'm going to clear off my slate, and I'm going to do it a different way. So again, we always want to start counting with the small number on this side and the large number on this side. This time I'm going to go up a whole 10. If I go 39 and I go up 10, that takes me to 49, right? So I started right off with a 10 jump. Now, 49 to 53. Well, I could make a small jump to 50, but I think I know that from 49 to 53 is a jump of plus 4. So again, we get 10 plus 4 is 14. We get the same answer. And you could take different jumps, but remember, you're trying to make big jumps, not a whole bunch of little small jumps. You're trying to make big jumps, and you're trying to make jumps that are even tens, if you can, because it's easier to add tens. All right? All right, here's another one to think about, folks, that we want you to try on your own. So what you're going to do is you're going to think mentally about how you would solve this using the counting up strategy. Then you can either count up in your head, or you can use an open number line to keep track of your counting. Remember, everyone might count in different ways, but you're trying to make jumps that make sense, jumps that are even tens or even hundreds, and you're trying to not make a whole bunch of little jumps, but only a few big jumps. So hit pause, let your students work on 343 minus 158, and then we'll bring everybody back together to share some strategies. And then after you've shared strategies, you can hit play again, and I'll share a couple strategies and see if they're ones that you have also used. So go ahead and hit pause and let the class work on 343 minus 158. So here's my open number line. Again, I'm starting with the small number, and the higher numbers are always to the right side on the number line. You always go up higher this way. So 343 is up here. So one thing you could do, you could always just start with a 100 jump, right? So if you went from 158 plus 100, in this case it would work, 100 would be 258. Well, I'm trying to get to 343, so I didn't go too far. 100 jump works. Now, let's see. I don't like that 58. I want to get a nice even number to work with, so I'm going to do a 2 jump to get to 260. Okay? I didn't like 258. It wasn't a nice even 10, and I wanted to get to a nice even 10 to set me up for some really good big jumps. So I did a plus 2, a very small jump ahead to get to 260. But now I can do a really big jump. I know that 260 plus 40 will get me to 300. I know that 60 plus 40 is 100. So 260 plus 40 will get me to 300. Well, now to go from 300 to 343, 300 to 343, we know that's just a 43 jump, right? Plus 43. Now, I'm going to add my easy numbers first, my 100 and my 40. So that's 140. Now I'm going to add my other 40 right here. 140 plus 40 is 180. I'm going to add this 3, 183. This 2 makes it 185. So 185 is the difference between 343 and 158. So in other words, 343 minus 158 equals, what did I say it was? 185. And then we got that by using an open number line and the counting up strategy. Let's see, there's a different way we could have done it. Well, that's just the answer. So the first time I started with a big 100 jump. I didn't have to do it that way. I could have said, you know what, I don't like that 158. I want to get to a nice even 10, an even number to work with. So I could have said I'm going to do a small jump first, a plus 2 jump to get me to 160. And then I could have done I couldn't do a 200 jump, right? Because if I went 200 ahead from 160, that would put me at 360, and I overshot a little bit. So let's just do a 100 jump to keep it easy. So 160 plus 100 more would be 260. Make sure I keep track of that jump, plus 100. And then 260, I could do a plus 40 to get to 300. And then I could do a 43 jump to get to 343. So this is very similar to my other one. It ends up being very similar, doesn't it? 100 and let's see, 40 plus 40 is 80. So 100 plus 80 plus the 3 is 183 plus the 2 is 185. So there's different ways you could do your jumps, but try to get it down to, less than 4 jumps. I feel like you should be able to do less than 4 jumps each time. Here's another way to look at it. This is just another way to look at the jumps we did. We started at 158. We did a plus 2 to get to 160. Then we were at 160. We did a plus 40 to get to 200. Then we were at 200. We did a plus 100 to get to 300. Then we were at 300. We did a plus 40 to get to 340. This is one way we could have done it. And we were at 340. We're trying to get to 343, so we knew that was a plus 3. So this is just kind of recording all of our jumps and where we ended up. And then wherever we ended up is where we start our next jump at. And we do it until we get all the way to 343. And then you just add the numbers that you added. So we'll circle these numbers that we added, add them all up, and they equal 185. So this is another way to show an open number line counting up strategy, but we didn't use a number line in this situation. So if that works for you, you could do it that way. All right, so on your slate or on a piece of paper, I want you working on this one, but the first thing I want you to do, I'm going to use my old text tool here, is make an estimate. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is make an estimate, and then you'll do the actual work to get the actual answer, and then you compare your answer to your estimate. If they're kind of close, that gives you a good feeling that you're at least in the right ballpark. Your answer makes sense. If they're way far off, you know you did something wrong. You need to go back and look at either how you got your estimate or how you did your work, because something isn't right. So start out by making an estimate, then do the work. Solve 261 minus 146. Maybe you want to use the counting up strategy that we've been practicing. Maybe you want to use an open number line. And then you can come together and discuss your answers. And when you you'll hit pause. And then when you hit play next, I'll go over one of the ways that you could have solved it. So now begin working on this, but starting with making an estimate, then getting your answer, and then discuss your answers with the class, discuss your strategies, and then you'll hear me discuss a strategy or two. Okay, well, if I'm going to make an estimate, I am going to, I could round off to the nearest 100. It wouldn't be my best estimate, okay? It's not going to be the closest estimate, but let's see. I'm deciding whether I'm going to keep it at 200 or bump it up to 300. The 6 next door tells me, it's 5 or above, so I'm going to give it a shove up. So if I'm rounding to the nearest 100, this would be 300. If I'm rounding to the nearest 100 here, this is my hundreds place. I'm deciding if I'm going to leave it at 100 or if I'm bumping it up to 200. And I look next door to see what I'm going to do. That's a 4. Well, I know the saying is 4 or below, let it go. So we're leaving it at 100. Everything else is getting rounded off to a 0. So 300 minus 100, of course, is 200. So that's one way you could have gotten your estimate. Not the best. It's not going to be the closest estimate, but it sure is a quick estimate. Now, let me clear this off. Now, let's see. That was getting an estimate rounding to the nearest 100. I think I would rather get a better estimate than that, and I'm going to round to the nearest 10. So I'm going to circle or underline the number in the tens place. It's 6 tens. So am I leaving that at 60 or am I bumping it up to 70? Well, the 1 tells me I'm leaving it alone. So it's going to be 260. Remember, you round off anything else with a 0. 146, I'm asking myself, if I'm rounding to the nearest 10, the tens, the number in the tens place is the 4. The digit in the tens place is the 4. Am I leaving it at 4, which would be 40, or am I bumping it up to 50? The 6 tells me I'm bumping it up, right? 5 or above, give it a shove. So now I've got 260 minus 150, which would be 260 minus 150 would be 110. So you can see I have a big difference here in my estimates. And it's because this one is rounded to the nearest 100, which almost all the time it's not going to be as close as if you round to the nearest 10. So I think I'm going to go with this as my estimate. I think that's going to be a closer estimate. Well, now we have to do the work, right? 261 minus 146. So I'm going to think of an open number line. That's the way my mind is working today. The open number line strategy is really working well for me today. So we're going to go with, not my eraser, my pen. We're going to go with 146, and we're going to count up until we get to 261. So I'm going to go to 150, which is a +4. Now I'm going to go a whole 100. That's a big jump. That's the kind of jump we like. And that'll get me to 250. I knew I could do a whole 100 because my number I'm trying to get to is above 250. So I could do one big jump. Now I know to get from 250 to 260 is just a +10. And 100 plus 10 is 110. Plus 4 more is 114. And you can see that when I compare it to my estimate when I rounded to the nearest 10, it's really close. Not as close because I rounded it to the nearest 100. So it's always good to round to the smaller places. If you're dealing with 3-digit numbers in the hundreds place, round to the nearest 10. If you're dealing with thousands, then it might be okay to round to the nearest 100. Okay? But anyhow, our answer here is 114. So 261 minus 146 is 114. We know our answer makes sense because our estimate was 110. All right, everybody, now it's time for you to show how well you understand the counting up subtraction method that we just did together. So you're going to be working on page 73 in your math journal, and that's going to give you 4 problems to practice using the counting up subtraction method. Let's see, it says fill in the unit box. You'll be able to fill in whatever you want here. Don't spend too much time on that. It's not that important. You're going to count up to solve problems 1 through 3. Use an open number line or number sentences. Use any strategy to solve problem 4. So if you don't like the counting up strategy and using an open number line, you can use whatever strategy you want to for number 4. But it should be one that gives you the right answer and doesn't take you too long to do. If you find a strategy that takes you a long time, then you probably need to use a different strategy. If you find a strategy that doesn't always get you the right answer, you probably need to use a different strategy because that one doesn't seem to be working for you. Okay, now it doesn't say, it does say, so you have to make an estimate. So I always like to start off making my estimate first. Doesn't matter, you can solve it and then make your estimate afterward. But for me, it's a good little warm up to do my estimate first. So at any rate, you are all now working on page 73. When you finish page 73, go on to page 74, which should be a math box page. Let me double check. Sure enough, number 74 is a math box page. And then your teacher can hit pause here. And when she thinks enough people are done with number 73, the next screen you see will be the answers, so you can check your work. I hope this all made sense to you. If it doesn't, stick with it, kiddos. It'll come to you, you'll get it, or you'll find another strategy that works for you. Have a good day, everyone. See you soon. Okay, I'm showing you the answers now. If you're not ready to see the answers, move away from the screen. Answer to number 1. These are sample estimates because yours might be different, but this sure would have been a good one. 70 minus 40, rounding to the nearest 10, is 30. And then using your open number line, you would have gotten that exact answer. In this case, your answer would have matched your estimates. I'll leave that on the screen. You can check number 2. What equals 91 minus 46? Remember, we always read from left to right. We never go backwards and say 41 minus 91. So this is what equals 91 minus 46. So we're still trying to solve 91 minus 46. You could have used 90 minus 50 and gotten 40 as your estimate. And then using the counting up technique from 46 to 91, counting up from 46 to 91, you should have gotten 45. 45 and 50 are pretty close, so you know that your answer makes sense. Number 3, your estimate, if you rounded to the nearest 10, you would have gotten 280 minus 260, which equals 20. And then when you did your counting up from 256 to 283, you should have gotten 27. 20 and 27 are pretty close, so you know your answer at least makes sense. And number 4, this is what you would have gotten. If you rounded to the nearest 10, 750 minus 500. Actually, this isn't rounded to the nearest 10, it's rounded to the nearest 100, which if you look at 487, you can quickly tell it's very close to 500. And these two answers are pretty close, so they make sense. So check your answers over. Raise your hand and get help if you need it. Go back and look if you got it wrong and try to figure out on your own why you got it wrong. But if you can't, that's what your teacher is there for, to help you figure it out. Here's the answer to the first 3.